Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. Their eyes met across the crowded platform at Paddington Station in the middle of London. When she saw him look at his watch and then at her heart skipped a beat. He smiled attractively, and his white teeth made her day and most of the platform brighter. She became weak in the knees. He was at least 6 feet tall, had a broad back, was about 29 years old, had blonde hair, and blue eyes that looked like water. As he walked up to her and asked, "Where have you been all my life?" He seemed to be dripping with testosterone. Susan laughed like a little girl as she posed for this handsome suitor. "I bet you tell all the girls that." "Honey, only the ones I think are pretty." The blonde Adonis looked down at his gold watch, which looked expensive, and said, "The train will be late. Would you like a cup of coffee?" Susan saw the handsome man and couldn't say no, even though she was hiding a secret. She didn't have to wait long before she was sitting next to her dreamboat. "By the way, my name is Brett." "Oh, and my name is Susan." He took her hands while the plastic cups and cardboard sandwiches were still hot. "What a great name. It really fits you. Even though we just met, I feel like I've known you my whole life. Are you married, by the way?" Susan shook her head so hard that her drop earrings hit the side of her face, leaving small bruises. "I'm alone." "Good. I already knew you were. I can spot unhappy married women from a mile away. They have a boyfriend and no longer need to care about how they look, which is kind of sad. But I can tell you put in extra work. That's what I call style. Hair that has been bleached, lots of makeup, bright red lipstick, a satin blouse, and a skirt." Susan ate it all up like a kitten on speed, even though she had a big secret. She had never met anyone like this before. She had never met a man who cared so much about her before. That's if you don't count the old milkman who always offered her an extra carton of milk. "Brett, I like your name." "Yes, it is my name. My parents picked it out right after I was born." His handsome, smooth, and manly face had a look of sadness on it. "What's wrong?" Susan asked with worry. "I was thinking about my parents. They died on an expedition to find a lost tribe in the Amazon rainforest, not long after I was born. We think someone ate them. I was raised by a very old aunt, and when she died in mysterious ways, she left me all of her money. I always thought of her as my second mother, but enough about me. Tell me about yourself." Susan took a deep breath. I'm 26 years old. I live in a small bedsit above a chip shop, and I'm a temporary worker." "How about you, Brett?" he said in a humble way. "I'm a brain surgeon." "Wow, does that mean you make people think differently?" "Yes, Susan, you are smart. In fact, I have saved 4 of the 6 lives that were operated on today. Not a bad average, right?" "Wonderful." Susan melted. Then, over the loudspeaker, the announcer said, "We're sorry, but all trains are canceled because of the weather and a lack of people to check tickets. Oh, no. I don't know how I'll get home. Honey, don't worry your little head. I'll come up with something, but in the meantime, I want you to come to dinner with me." Susan was shocked. "But I have nothing to wear." "You're beautiful the way you are. You shouldn't do anything different." Even though Susan had a secret, she couldn't say no to the handsome brain surgeon. A few minutes later, they were in a taxi on their way to a fancy restaurant in the West End. "Ah, Mr. Smith, it's great to see you back at our little restaurant," Luigi said as he led the couple to a table in a quiet corner. Susan sat down at a table in the dimly lit restaurant and was amazed by how nice everything was. She said, "It's a little bit better than what I'm used to. I usually go to McDonald's or get greasy chips from the shop downstairs." Luigi said, "You are Mr. Smith. Shouldn't he call you doctor?" Brett looked at Susan and smiled as brightly as he could. "Darling, senior surgeons are called Mr., not Doctor." Susan was thrilled to hear darling. Brett's voice made it sound so natural. She was falling hard for him, and even though she had a secret, she wanted this night to last forever. As they ate, each course was better than the last, and they talked about their lives, hopes, and dreams. Susan said that she wanted to find someone who would love and care for her and the children she hoped to adopt because she couldn't have children of her own. Brett talked about his work, how he saved people's lives in a heroic way, and how exciting his life was. He skied in the winter and sailed on his yacht in the summer. He went to places all over the world and met people who were almost as important as him. They danced for hours to the Latin American strollers' music after the meal. Soon enough, the lights went out and the floors were swept around them, which was a subtle hint that it was time to leave. Susan checked her watch and said, "It's 2 a.m., she sobbed. "How do I get back home? Don't worry, darling. While you were putting powder on your pretty nose, I made reservations at a hotel around the corner. I knew it was getting late, and I didn't want you walking around alone at this time of night. The hotel only had one room for 2 people left, and it was the honeymoon suite. Is that okay? If you want, I'll sleep on the floor." Susan looked up at the strong, deeply tanned face of Brett, which was full of trust. She didn't even think about her secret. It must have been the 2 bottles of champagne or the mood of the party. She said, "You won't have to sleep on the floor tonight," in a voice that didn't sound like her own. It was as if someone else was looking into those beautiful eyes. Brett gave Susan a loving smile as he led her to the door and out into the cold night. They walked hand in hand to the hotel, avoiding muggers, drunks, and other bad people along the way. Susan would have been scared to be in that place so late at night on her own, but she felt safe with Brett. He was strong, and if he had to, he would give his life to protect her. They got to the hotel, which was made of marble and had chandeliers. The bellhop led them to their comfortable room. "Oh, it's beautiful," Susan said as she walked in and looked around in awe. Brett looked around and said, "I've never been here before." Susan's dream of the honeymoon suite came true. The room was tastefully decorated with hearts, bows, arrows, and cherubs. There was a double-poster bed with lace and flowers on it. Brett spun her around and asked, "Darling, do you like it?" Susan was still high on champagne, so she laughed and said, "It's a dream come true." Brett brought her to the bed and said, "I ordered this for you. How do you like it?" It was a pink satin nightgown that was lying on the bed. "Oh, it's so pretty. Can I wear it? Darling, of course it's yours." So Susan ran into the bathroom and dreamily looking at the beautiful pink satin nightgown. She was getting ready to put it on when she had to go to the bathroom. She sat down. She thought about her dark, deep secret. She screamed in shock. She was really a man in a dress. What was she thinking? She must not have realized how strong the drink was. Her mind went right back to the beginning of her dark and deep secret. Since she was young and tried on her mother's clothes, she had been secretly dressing as a girl. She hung out in the neighborhood near her home in a small village near Leeds for years, trying on tops, pants, skirts, and other great clothes for women from washing lines. She put all of the girly things in an old suitcase and put it under her bed. But eventually people found out. Even her mother and father were ashamed of her, and in a matter of minutes, she was out on the street with just a few personal belongings, her old case full of girl clothes, and not much else. She was told not to come back. She went to London because she had heard that people there were more accepting, and she was lucky enough to find a temporary job as a girl. Even though she was alone, she didn't have to hide the fact that she was a girl. She was small for a man, and her hair was long and her voice was soft. She decided that she should try to live the life she should have been born into. When she was a girl, she was happier just trying to forget her male past. Someone knocked on the door. "Susan, my sweetheart, are you okay?" "I can't breathe because I'm so excited, and I also need to floss. I can't get out. Don't be scared. There's nothing to worry about." "If you open the door, we can talk." Susan knew she was putting off what had to be done, so she put on her nightgown, unlocked the door, and went into her bedroom with trepidation. "Wow, you look great, honey." Susan couldn't control how she felt, so she ran to her bed, hid under the covers, and started crying her eyes out. "Please come out and tell me what's wrong. I don't think it's that bad." Susan was feeling a little dizzy from being under the covers, so she tried to get out of bed. She turned away from those beautiful eyes and whispered, "I have a deep, dark secret. How can you, a beautiful, wonderful, and lovely girl, have dark and deep secrets? When I tell you, you'll throw me out into the street. Don't act stupid. It can't be that bad. Why are you upset? I am not a woman. I'm sorry. I'm a man, not a woman. So? Brett said. Are you going to scream at me now? Susan asked as she tried to crawl back under the covers. She was grabbed by strong arms, lifted like a feather, and set down next to Brett, who was wearing satin pajamas. I'm a doctor, and even though I'm usually modest, I'm a very good one. As soon as I saw you, I knew your origins. We are taught to notice the Adam's apple, a slightly different body shape, and the fact that you missed shaving a few hairs on your upper lip. No matter what, I still love you with a passion. I knew all along and still continued because I don't care, honey. Susan landed in his arms. She felt so bad that she couldn't say anything. After a wonderful night, they fell asleep in each other's arms. Susan had a deep, restful sleep. She had vivid dreams about Brett, about how he made her crazy in love and how kind and caring he was. She then woke up. Brett had left and it was morning. On his pillow, where his handsome head had been, there was one red rose and a card that said simply, "Thank you." Susan took a shower. She felt bad when she realized her dream wasn't going to come true. She got dressed and left the hotel to go out into the world. Susan left the rose card and nightgown behind because it hurt too much. Later, she went to work on autopilot and didn't tell anyone what had happened. She was too embarrassed about her own stupidity and how a man who didn't even say goodbye. The day was over and she made it to the train station. Once the train was on time, she got on and went to her usual spot at the end of the train. She sat down and took out her Mills and Boone love story. She figured out that the story was about a doctor who met his love at a train station. Susan let out the tears she could no longer hold back. All the bad things that had happened to her came flooding back, along with the memory of Brett and the love she had lost from him. Here. Take this, a kind voice said as a handkerchief was handed to her. She blew her nose loudly and said, "Thanks." Brett was sitting there when she looked up. As far as Susan was concerned, there was only Brett in the carriage. He was talking, and she finally got what he was trying to say. He felt so bad. He had to go to the hospital because of an emergency. He had to go save a girl's life. It wouldn't have been fair to wake her up, since he didn't finish the surgery until 7 o'clock. He told someone to put the rose and a note on her bed before she woke up, but the note was wrong. He had wanted her to wait for him there. She was gone when he got back to the hotel. I thought you might be taking the same train home tonight, so I made sure I was here. Did you think I would just leave you there? Susan nodded, but she couldn't say anything. Brett was upset and said, I'm not like that. Anyway, you will have to trust me when we get married. Susan stared at him with a sharp look and asked, Are you asking me to be your wife? Yes, I'm your sweetheart, will you? How can we get married when I don't have the right parts? I am a surgeon. You can have whatever parts you want for a very reasonable price. Now, do you want to marry me? Yes, please, yes! Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.